Anyway, make sure everything's working here. I think we're good. All right. So, I don't know if you guys are watching the market today, but it's another brutal day. Painful, but I just bought. So, bought a couple more. But I think I'm out of liquid cash now, so I'm hoping we're at the bottom. Anyway, we'll see what happens. There's a lot of stuff going on. None of it's good. But, the market's pretty volatile right now, so it'd be a shame to have it go back up. I'm not advising anybody to be thinking like I'm thinking, because that's not sound logic. What we're going to talk about today is some budgeting type situations, and there's kind of an overlying concept. In fact, I've got a video on it. This guy's kind of funny. He talks with his hands, but I keep running into his videos when I'm looking at YouTube for different sort of financial experts, and I've never gone to his site. It's all sort of adverts to get you to his site, but he's an older gentleman. And he's really his hand gestures are pretty distracting, but his message is pretty much spot on. And what he talks about in the concept in the book, they'll talk about as well, is this notion that you need to pay yourself first. Because we'll talk about some budgeting, some financial statements, things like that. But the gist of it is, if your strategy in terms of how you're going to get ahead in life and saving money and all that stuff is you're going to cover all your expenses and probably some of your wants as well. So not just your needs, but your wants, and then you're going to save what's left over. And that's just, I can tell you from practical experience and other people's advice and experience that that's not the way to do it. What you need to do, and this gets in this concept of pay yourself first, where, and again, it can be a percentage, so you could actually get started on it now because it doesn't really, it's a percentage. It's not a fixed dollar figure. But as you go through life, that a certain amount of your income is, a certain percentage is, off in this other sort of long-term investment. You don't have to necessarily define what that long-term investment is, but it's just money that's just sort of unavailable, and then you jump in and you pay all your bills, and then you end up with, hopefully at the end of the month, depends on the month, but hopefully you end up with some discretionary money at the end of the month. And that's the sort of money that, now if you have other wants or other things, you can basically guilt-free, use that money as you want. Or you can also, if you're like me, you can scrape those kind of remaining monies together, put them in a different fund, and then try and jump on stocks that are more speculative than they are investments. So when I say investments and speculation are different, that's what I'm talking about. The money that, the very methodical, let's say 10% of your salary, 10% of your income that goes into your savings plan, that's the pay yourself first kind of money. That's the long-term goal, the college, kids for college and retirement and, major investment kind of stuff. And that other money, if you're fortunate enough to be in that situation where there is some left over, that's the type of money that, that's your get-rich-quick schemes and your speculation type stuff. So the objectives, relationships, personal balance sheet, money management to achieve a saving goal. Anyway, sometimes, especially if you're starting a business, in fact, right now it's almost impossible to start a business with borrowed money. Banks are so tight on that, and that's just not how banks operate. Banks are very predictable. They're pretty boring folks, and they want kind of a sure thing. And a new business is anything but a sure thing. And even somebody, with sketchy credit, this isn't, 2007 or whatever. The pendulum, like I said, has swung back very far the other direction to where you have to prove on paper that you are just a kind of a bulletproof risk, that there is no risk involved, that they're gonna make money on you regardless. So sometimes that's tough to achieve. But if you are going to impress upon the bank, impress upon the lender that you've got the wherewithal to make it, then something like a balance sheet, a cash flow statement will help. well, we'll talk more about it as we go, but a cash flow statement, you'll hear businesses, or you'll see a business, you go, man, those guys were very successful. How'd they go out of business? And usually it has to do with cash flow. And cash flow is just like day-to-day money coming in, money coming out. They may have a whole bunch of assets. They may have, some product or something that's very valuable. They may have some intellectual property that's worth, millions of dollars. But if it's not generating any cash, the business is probably going to fail because they aren't going to meet their current necessities, their current obligations. Things like salaries, paying the rent, paying the utility bills, stuff like that will kill them. So anyway, money management, day-to-day financial activities needed to manage personal economic resources. So we're not looking at this necessarily from a small business perspective, and certainly not a corporate perspective. We're looking at this from your own, your personal finance point of view. And again, long-term security. So, when we talk about, $1 million, well, I don't need $1 million in retirement. Yeah, you kind of do. Depending on whether you have a pension or what you've got, but let's say you have $1 million in retirement. It doesn't mean you go spend that $1 million in a year. No, it means that hopefully through the course of your life, you've paid off this house, so you're living in your own place more or less. So there's no more rent to be paid. And you want to retire, you want to kind of enjoy life and stuff. So if you do have $1 million in the bank plus that house, you just start saying, okay, cool, I'm going to, not even touch the principal, that $1 million. I'm just going to live off the interest. And that's why, people, pensioners and retirees are very concerned about the market right now because if they're living just off interest, that's not going to work for them right now. But anyway, if you get to a point and you can transition to more stable investments, let's say you're living off something that is going to pay maybe an 8% yield. You've stepped away from the 10, 12 type of more dynamic things in the stock market, and maybe you're switching back to 7% yield. Anyway, let's say you're doing that. 7% of $1 million is $70,000. So now you're sort of relaxing here. You've got your house paid off, you're not working, and you've got $70,000 a year coming in. That's reasonable. Granted on paper you're a millionaire. You're more than a millionaire if you count your savings plus your house, but you're able to sustain that lifestyle indefinitely. And the indefinite part is kind of relative because people are living longer than they ever thought they would. People are also working longer, but maybe you're not one of those people. Maybe you want to retire, at 60 or whatever. It's certainly conceivable that you're going to make it into your 80s and beyond, given the demographics and your age and stuff. People live longer all the time. So anyway, and then even at the end, if you say, screw the grandkids, I'm spending now. I'm not only am I doing my 50, but I'm going to take another 50, and I'm going to be dead in whatever number of years. Lifetime membership is not such a good deal anymore. I'm living for the now. I'm going to do the reverse mortgage. I'm going to basically the bank's going to own that house when I'm gone, and now the kids are really kind of disgruntled. But it depends on what your situation is. So opportunity cost, money management. We talked about this before. And in fact, in the guy in the video, they've there's been books written on this. I referenced Starbucks in this book. They talk about lattes. They're saying if you forego a $5 latte every work day, that's what, $100. 20 days, 20 work days. If you start investing in that, you will have your $1 million, $100 a month for your lifetime. Remember, in the example, we're doing $500 a month. They end up with $5.3 million. You better, but whatever. Just $100 a month will get you $1 million if you start early. If you wait, if you're in your 40s and you start doing $100 a month, you're going to be a Walmart greeter, and you're going to be not in your happy place. But anyway, not to take anything out against Walmart people. And they've got some strategies, in terms of disposable income. But they even have a law they're talking about. The book doesn't reference it, but people generally, their wants and their needs seem to expand, which isn't if you think about it, it's not really logical that your needs should expand as your income goes up. Your needs should be your needs, and you should have all this excess money. But that's not where people end up. People end up usually just a little bit in debt, all the way through their life, regardless of how much more money they're making. So you don't want that to be you. Money management, storing, maintaining, creating personal financial statements, implementing a plan. So the storing and maintaining, anybody here got a savings deposit box? They're kind of a thing of it. Well, okay, so anyway, they used to be more common, but now they're, a lot of people just don't do it for one reason or another. Especially here in Alaska, I would not most, but anyway, a large number of us have gun safes. So certainly get a fireproof one, just for the good of the guns, and probably also for the good of the papers. If you have some financial documents, things like that, or copy your will, whatever. Obviously make sure other people have the combination to it, but that would suffice for a lot of folks. Obviously if it's off-site, at a different location, that's even better, but financial records. The truth, too, is that we live in a far better time in terms of storing that kind of stuff. You go to most of your bank websites and all that stuff's on PDF, and it's already out there. They'll keep it for a certain number of years, but there's nothing to prevent you at sort of tax time from, just for ease of putting your taxes together, to sort of download that stuff. Maybe put it on a DVD or a memory stick. Probably a memory stick's better, but anyway, some mechanism to keep that stuff electronically as well, and then you would be all set. You'd have more than enough documents. Personal financial statements, just to kind of see where you stand, but it may not be that exciting right now if you're not really that far in the money and you don't want to really, dwell on it. I don't, and I've been in different business propositions or buying property or whatever where I'm forced to draw these up once in a while, and it's like kind of a gee whiz kind of thing. I don't see a whole lot of utility. I don't obsess about it myself, but certainly if you're running a business, you need a cash flow statement and a balance sheet before anybody will loan you money, income and outflows. But we'll do one in the homework just as an example, so you'll see what's involved in there. And creating and implementing a plan, spending, allocating, budgeting. But it doesn't need to be this complex plan. Like I said, pick a number. In the video again, and I'll watch this video I keep talking about, but the guy says even start at 1% and up it every month. But what I found is that it's fairly addictive and it's fairly painless. You will learn to live within your means, especially if you go with, let's say, there's different mutual fund companies out there. You got Fidelity, Vanguard, maybe your own bank's got somebody, T. Rowe Price, TIAA-CREF. I mean, huge bunch of companies out there, competitive marketplace, and they want to develop a lifelong relationship. You guys don't have a whole bunch of money, so you would think, why would they have any interest in me? I'm sorry, I don't mean to generalize, but even if you're not making really any money right now, they still want you. You are the clientele that they're most interested in because you're going to be the lifelong customers. All marketing's that way. It's directed at people like you. Beer advertising, whatever. You're not going to get some 50, 60-year-old guy who's been a Bud drinker his whole life to switch to Miller or whatever. Things are fixed. It's your lifestyle choices. So if they can get you to be a Fidelity guy today, they know 20 years from now when you're rolling in it and you're immovable in terms of your decisions. So anyway, they make things attractive to you. And they will, you could say, hey, I want to set up a mutual fund account, and they'll be, maybe a $500,000 minimum, but all that's waiverable generally if you set up in some sort of regular savings plan. And I know some of them go as low as like $25, so $25 a month and boom. But anyway, what's going to happen is at the end of the year, you're going to see, whoa, that was fairly easy. It's starting to grow. And then you'll see the market hopefully starting to bounce around, and then greed will set in, and you'll start to up your percentage and do all that kind of stuff. And it'll take care of itself, and then you'll have to rein yourself back and go, okay, I need to enjoy life a little bit, not be such a miser. I need to pry that wallet open and maybe buy something once in a while. But I think that's what will happen if you actually set up a pretty good savings plan. And again, I would just go with a percentage off the top, pay yourself first, and you're set. Getting back to this home file type thing, so it's up to you. Tax records, 7 years. generally, and I mean, every 7 years I'm pretty happy because, I mean, the tax law is incredibly difficult. Nobody gets it perfectly right. If we all get audited, there's going to be some mistakes. I mean, it's just inevitable. There's a guy, Rumsfeld, who, is a Secretary of Defense, but I'm not politically, I'm not in direct alignment with the guy, but I do think it's pretty funny. What he does every year, he writes this letter. I mean, it's like a pre-formed letter, and he submits it with his tax form every year saying, the tax system is too complex. There's no way I can understand it. I did the best of my ability, and here you go. Here's my taxes. Because he's, just one of those people who's just frustrated that the tax system it needs interpretation, and you're going to make judgment calls, and it may get it wrong. But anyway, if the IRS comes knocking for an audit, you got to have those records. The ignorance is no excuse, and the rest of it. They're not very tolerant, but it's easily done. You'll get 1099s, you'll get all these different forms, based on your W-2s, and you got to keep those somewhere. Financial services records, to a certain extent, they keep that stuff for you a lot of times. But if you buy and sell stock, there's what they call the basis. How much do you pay for that initially? Now they do it all electronically, but it doesn't hurt to have a backup. Credit records, whatever, auto titles, things like that. Housing records. It's not so bad here in Germany and Spain. Oh my gosh, they've got these documents with like wax seals and ribbons on them and all this stuff. If I lose one of those documents related to a house, it's hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to get those records created, because they're in the old Europe mindset. I got rid of all the Spanish stuff, but the German one, I again have these documents. I don't speak German. They're all in German, but they're very formal with these ribbons. And anyway, those things in the U.S. not so bad. Most of that stuff is kept at the courthouse or wherever, and where the deed is filed. Insurance records, it's more of a knowledge of what you got. Investment records, again, estate planning records. Also, when we get into it, the book will make reference to like stock, shares. When you buy shares, you don't take the stock certificates. I mean, I think you can if you really wanted to, but they would charge you because they'd have to be delivered, and you have no interest in keeping those things. You don't want them. It's a liability. Any of those, especially with stock things where people have shares, those are like, antiques for framing or whatever. It's not something that people do. Estate and retirement records. Again, just general records, but if they're locked away, you need to make sure that, especially if it's a will or something, that if you're not around, insurance, the only way people are going to collect that, the insurance companies are not going to hunt the beneficiaries down and say, hey, did this guy die? We haven't heard from you in years. So anyway, you want to keep track of that stuff. So safe deposit box, believe me, there aren't that many out there. Birth, death certificates, citizenship, military papers, adoption, serial numbers, yes and no on all this stuff. Obviously, if you've got, stock and bond certificates, you should not have those. Coins and other collectibles, if you're into that, I guess so. But birth, marriage, death certificates, believe me, I've lost those things before. And, again, you got to know the courthouse. You got to pay $15, $20, and you get another one. That's not a crisis. But other things are. Actually, I might be more concerned about, photos from my kids or something than I would about some of these things, because most of these things are recoverable. Also, if you're going around your house, and again, this might be a good thing to maybe time with tax season, but sort of walk around and make sort of just a pan with some sort of video camera and save that file, because in case there's a fire or something like that, when you come to make an insurance claim, trying to make this inventory of what you got, it is just far easier to say I had all these things and here's a video of me with a picture of this. But just one suggestion. Records on your personal computer. Yeah. But again, most of these things, computerized versions of a will, that's kind of nice to have, but that is a document that they want. They want the paper copy. They don't want some scanned fax, whatever. They want the real deal. So I'm not really sure what a copy would do, other than maybe help somebody find it. But unless you have the actual document, that's not going to work. Debit card records, credit card records. Again, everybody knows about viruses. They know about hard drives failing. Come up with your plan. Usually it can just be a second hard drive or some other, data backup. But again, not stored right next to the other computer, and maybe, a third one kind of offsite. So whatever works for you. There's some French photographer. He had his whole life work, all on one computer, and they stole it. I mean, what an idiot. But again, if you're into that kind of stuff, you gotta. Anyway, that's not the nature of this class. How long should they be kept? Yep. Wills they're kind of dated anyway. Something happens in your life where they might need to be changed. You move from state to state in a new will. You might name other beneficiaries. You have kids. You get divorced. Whatever happens. So wills are semi-perishable. Social Security information, again, Social Security office downtown. Show up there. My Social Security card was in the wrong name. I had it under Jim Parker rather than James, my legal name. In the state of Alaska, I had no problem with it when, years ago when I was buying a house. And so I went down there and, got a new one. Again, not a huge problem. The courthouse is keeping all that stuff. Property investments, yeah, because you got to establish that basis. You got to establish what you paid for something. Tax records, supporting data. They're saying 6 years. I've always gone with 7. So anyway, certain documents to keep. Personal financial statements. So, maybe it's helpful to kind of figure out where you're at, and especially, if you're engaged and just getting married, you talk about everything generally as a couple other than where you stand financially, so maybe that's helpful. I don't know. Or maybe it's worth getting a prenuptial or something. Who knows? But again, those are personal questions. So balance sheet, yeah, this is just where you are, where you stand. And again, don't get confused. I've spent so much time with people, especially, say, like in the Middle East, where, I've got a fortune in carpets. There are all these handmade, hand-woven carpets, and they're worth who's going to buy them? Where's the market for that? And if you are selling them, say, like on eBay or something, people aren't paying top dollar. I was in Turkey, and I was going back and forth all the time because I was having to do some work back in D.C. And I had a friend over there who's a carpet dealer, and I said, hey, give me a couple, 3 of these rugs, these Tabrizas or whatever. And they were like $3.50 a piece over there in Turkey. And so I threw them in a suitcase or duffel bag, whatever, and took them back. And I went to this big dealer in New Jersey because I happened to be back there. And sure enough, they're going for like $1,100 a piece. And I said, well, I've got some, Tabrizas here. Are you interested in buying them? Yeah, I might be interested. How much do you think? That's about $3.50 a piece. Again, it's just a regular retail setup. I'm not going to be able to get $1,100 for those carpets because I'm not in that sort of. I don't have a boutique. I don't have a selection. Nobody's paying. So don't be realistic is what I'm saying. And so when real estate, is it liquid, personal possessions, investment assets? Some things are easy to calculate. Stock market, dead easy. I can tell you to the second what it's worth. But other things, collectibles and stuff, you need a market. And believe me, especially in volatile times like right now, things that are completely unrelated, airplanes and luxury, collector kind of vehicles, they drop like a rock when the market goes, so goes all that expendable income because people are not going to buy that stuff when they're unsure of what's going on. Determining amounts owed, so liabilities. Current liabilities are less than a year. Long-term liabilities are something longer. But again, borrowing to buy a house is not necessarily a bad thing. That's just commonplace, and you're using credit smartly. Carrying credit card debt, that is a bad thing. There's really no excuse for that. And so not all liabilities are bad. Computing net worth, assets minus liabilities equals net worth. And insolvency is that, that's when you have a cash flow problem. The debts are due and you can't pay them. So, and that'll, cause the business to fail, cause your life to fail. And you don't want to do bankruptcy because that's a pretty regrettable, situation. It's a fairly, you take a short-term financial problem and you turn it into you fix it with a solution that's, I don't know. I got in trouble one time by saying it was a little dramatic, kind of like suicide, where you solve a short-term problem with a long-term solution. You just let things ride, or go to your creditors, figure something out. Don't do something drastic, because the problem is, just a short aside, is when you file bankruptcy, it sticks with you like 7 years, and then you think, okay, my credit's good now. Well, no, you have no credit, and creditors aren't stupid. When you go to get a new loan, they're going, you have no credit history for the past 5 years or 7 years? You probably declared bankruptcy at one point, didn't you? And if, plus it makes you look morally kind of flaky in the eyes of employers. You can't get a security clearance. You can't, there's a number of jobs that you're kind of excluded from because you've had a bankruptcy in your history. So it's not a quick solution. And they make it more difficult. And they don't even discharge all your debts. If you've got student loan debt, or basically any money you owe to the government, they don't discharge those. You still owe them. So, and certain things like, ugly marriage, alimony, child support, no, child support's still there. So anyway, do some research, and we'll talk more about that in another section of class. So net worth, figure that out. How to increase your net worth? Yeah, it's not rocket science. Increase savings, reduce spending. Cash flow statement. So this is more, the money coming in, the money coming out. Like I say, there's very wealthy people on a balance sheet who have all kinds of assets, but there's no money flowing in and out, I end up in that situation sometimes where I've got all these panels in the yard, but I need somebody to buy them, and until I've got that money flowing in, then it could be a problem. So preparing a cash flow statement, it takes in everything that's coming in, to include alimony, child support, government assistance, all that stuff, and then the income you consider. Outflows, fixed expenses, variable expenses. So fixed expenses would be something like rent, and certain other items. Variable expenses might be, travel, leisure kind of stuff, where there's some electiveness to it, and determine the net cash flows. And then budget, a spending plan. Live within your income, spend wisely, prepare for financial emergencies. Wise habit. Again, I told you I don't really do much of a budget. I tend to, at the end of the month, try to buy everything I can via credit card. Number one, because I need the miles, and number two, because I can pay the bill off every month too. But also now I can go back and review and just kind of go, because you can get even credit cards that will sort of categorize it for you. Sometimes they make some mistakes based upon the merchant's ID number, but you can go through and go, man, if I, this is adding up. A couple beers whenever is, we're talking $12 and, hundreds of dollars at the end of the month. So anyway, it helps you evaluate, and that's how, you do better the next month when you go back and review. And oh, by the way, then you can also see bogus charges, and you can get those taken care of. If you have errors on a credit card statement and you catch them in the month, they're completely happy. In fact, by law, they have to take care of it. Debit card, that's the problem with the debit card, is that it's the bank's policy. Credit cards are by law, mistakes need to be taken care of. But both of them, the more timely you are with it, a debit card, if it's within the first 30 days, they'll and especially, I'm not saying let go that long, but if you catch it quickly, they're much more apt to be pleasant with you. If it's longer than that, then they may not. Credit cards, again, by law, it's typically within the 30 days that they will have to make it right and fix it and issue you a new credit card and take those other changes off there. It's not that lengthy a process. Believe me, I think last year I had to do it like 5 times. Sometimes they just, you know, we'll talk about skimmers and all this other stuff where they get your credit card data. And do it. Yes?
There was a huge problem with the IRS this year, and a lot of people's cards had to be replaced.
Yeah, I never know really the source. All I know is, my daughter goes to school in Auburn, and I think it was 3 separate occasions. I'd get some strange bill from Walmart in Auburn. My daughter doesn't shop at Walmart that often, certainly. Anyway, but it's usually Bank of America, because it's the Alaska Airlines card, They contact me and they go, we noticed some suspicious behavior. In Spain, when I was over there, oh my God, it was just those people were, not they, but the criminal element there they took criminal to a whole new level. They had fake ATMs, and they were just skimmers. I mean, there's other technology, and I'll show you some videos of it on another day. But what they would do is they would roll up an ATM out there in the street, and it wasn't even functional. In fact, it said no funciona. Once you punch in your card, you put your card in, you punch your PIN, and it came back with it basically out of order in Spanish. And it wasn't an ATM. It had no money in it. All it was a skimmer. And so, you punch in you put in your card, they got the magnetic data, you give them their PIN, and boom, that number is getting hammered all over town within, because time's of the essence. By the time you can get to another ATM, your account may be drained. So, I mean, the stuff is out there, and there's not that many safeguards against that, especially skimmers. We'll show it. I came across some pretty cool videos that talk about that. So anyway, budgeting, especially, again, I'm not a marriage counselor here, but a lot of times if there is problems within a couple or whatever relationship on money, maybe if you could come to some agreement for what's realistic, and also that bit about paying yourself first, and okay, what's because some people like to spend money just to kind of feel better. It's fun to go shopping and stuff. So if you have a certain portion that our savings is taken care of, and the rest is kind of guilt free, spend as you will, maybe that would work. Budgeting system, so mental budget, physical budget, written budget, computerized budget, all kinds of different, applications out there. Mint is one of these, but again, do I really want to type too much data in? I don't know. It's kind of like the Ashley Madison thing where, they say they're going to, trust me or whatever, but I'm not one of those people, believe me. And I don't think there really were that many people. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I mean, these people, no, we'll protect your data. I mean, the guy, I guess, who got all this data, at least he wasn't blackmailing them. But I think there's already been suicides and stuff. But anyway, flaky people. Quicken and stuff, I mean, it's a good product if you're that methodical. Like I say, I'm not one of those people. A written budget, we all have our different, aptitudes and characteristics, and I'm not one of these kind of people. I tend to use like a bit of a bucket method, put a little bit in, take a little bit out, and at the end of the month see what happened. So, money management, reasons for saving. And again, I do think it is much more fun. Like I said, I've bought a lot of, different stuff like airplanes and Vipers and a whole bunch of Corvettes and stuff, but I always pay cash for them. I mean, there's no fun in that kind of recreational type thing when you're spending borrowed money. It's just, because the bad thing is when you go out and buy some, say, car that's kind of over and above what you need, and you finance it, but I really want it. It's not a big deal the first year to be paying that much for that car, but when it's a 5 or 6 year old car and now it's starting to have maintenance issues, and you're still paying that same amount, and it's kind of a beater, that's where it all sets in that wasn't a good idea. And pay yourself first. So again, you set up one of these things, into a savings account, into a mutual fund company. You can align something with one of these mutual fund companies that would just go into like a money market account, which would be, fine. There's absolutely no risk. They go into some sort of government securities, whatever you like. Savings in the 401k plans. So what's going to happen at the end of the year? A 401k, and we'll talk more about this when we talk about retirement type stuff. But again, the government encouraged people, bless you, encourages people to save money. So they have they have different plans. A 401k is an example of one. It's what they call tax deferred, right? What happens is when you're in the prime of your life and you're making big money, you're probably in the highest tax bracket. So let's say, in this example, you're making $100,000 a year, and you're getting taxed at the $100,000 a year rate, which is a bit higher than, say, the $80,000 a year rate. What is a good strategy is a 401k plan, and a 401k plan where you can invest a portion of your income, and when it comes to tax time, let's say you invest $20,000 a year into a tax-deferred 401k plan. So at the end of the year, when it comes to tax time, and the IRS looks at your income, because this $20,000 went into a qualified plan, the IRS looks at you as somebody who made $80,000 a year. That other $20,000 it's tax deferred. It's off in this other account, and that money's, you can't touch it not till you're 59 and a half. If you do touch it, if you really need it, you're going to pay a 10% penalty plus some taxes on it. You're going to do some other things, but if in turn for putting that money in a semi-permanent retirement plan, you are taxed at a lower tax rate. You're taxed at somebody who's making 80 grand. So there's different tax brackets, and it may go from, say, 28 up to 33%. So you're not going to take that same tax hit, because we have a progressive tax system where the more you make, the larger percentage you get taxed at. Now, when you retire and you start taking that money out, well, if you're retired, you're not making much money. Let's say you're living off your retirement, you're making 40, 50 grand a year. When that money is taxed, presumably you're in a lower tax bracket. And IRAs, we'll go there too, but that's a different thing as well. But a 401k is something you can set money into. You have a question?
Ask about the Roth IRAs.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. Roth IRA, and there's traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs, one of which you pay the taxes on it normally up front, and you get a tax-free in retirement. The other one, it's tax deferred, and you don't pay tax on it now, you pay tax in retirement. We'll talk more about that, but yeah, they're all good. But the problems with those, they're not problems, but there's limits. A couple thousand a year, 5,000 a year, something like that. 401k, depends every year, that goes up every year. But if you hit age 50, I think it is, you can do this double up thing where you can go up to like 25, 26,000 of your income. But for folks like you, it'd be like 20,000. But just the same, that's a good chunk to get that off the, out of the picture, so the IRS doesn't you don't end up losing it. So save coins, periodic investment, write a check each month. I don't do any of that. I make an agreement with one of these companies, and they take a certain percentage. And then when it comes to start filing my taxes, and I want this big 401k investment, it's already there. It's been done methodically, and I don't even consider that money as income. That's just, I paid myself first. So let's look at that video. And again, I'm talking like that guy with the hands. We'll see if
Many years ago, a man named Klassen wrote a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. This book became a worldwide bestseller, sold millions and millions of copies in every language, and it has one basic principle in the book, which is not very large, which says, pay yourself first. Resolve today that you are going to save and invest at least 10% of your income throughout your working life. Take 10% of your income off the top of your paycheck each time you receive one. Pay yourself first and put it into a special account for financial accumulation. The fact is that if you save just $100 per month throughout your working lifetime, and you invest that money in an average mutual fund that grows at 8 to 10% per annum, you'll be worth more than $1 million by the time you retire. My good friend David Bach wrote a book who said that if you simply spend one latte less, $5 a day, and you call it the latte factor, and save that money, $25 a week, you'll save $100 a month, and you'll become financially independent. He's been on half the television shows in America explaining that by saving a few dollars each day and saving it, you can achieve all your financial goals. What this means is that anyone, even a person earning minimum wage, if he or she starts early enough and saves long enough, can become a millionaire over the course of his or her working lifetime, and that includes you. Developing a lifelong habit of saving and investing your money is not easy. It requires tremendous determination and willpower. You have to set it down as a goal. You have to write it out. You have to make a plan. You have to work on it all the time. But once this practice locks in and becomes automatic, your financial success is virtually guaranteed. The key for you is to practice frugality, frugality, frugality in all things. Be very careful with every penny, especially at the beginning of your working life. Question every expenditure. Delay or defer important buying decisions for at least a week, if not a month. The longer you put off making a buying decision, the better your decision will be and the better price you will get at that time. A major reason that people retire poor is because of impulsive buying. They see something they like and they buy it with very little thought. They become victims of what is called Parkinson's Law, which says that expenses rise to meet income. This means that no matter how much you earn, you tend to spend that much and a little bit more besides. As a result, you never get ahead and you never get out of debt. Your job is to break Parkinson's Law. You don't have to be a victim of Parkinson's Law, but if you cannot save 10% of your income, start today by saving 1% of your income in a special savings and investment account. Put it away at the beginning of each month, even before you begin paying down your debts. Learn to live on the other 99% of your income. As you become comfortable living on 99%, raise your savings goal to 2% and live on 98%, then 3% and 4% and so on. Wow! Within 1 year, you'll be saving 10% and maybe even 15 or 20% of your income and living comfortably off the balance. At the same time, your savings and investment account will start to grow. You'll become more careful about your expenditures, and in a miraculous way, your debts will begin to be paid off one after the other. Within a year of starting saving 1% a month, your entire financial life will be under your control, and you will be on your way to becoming a self-made millionaire. Now, this process has worked for everyone, including tens of millions of people who read and applied the idea from Klassen's Richest Man in Babylon. Try it for yourself. Open a special account for financial accumulation today. Make a deposit in the account, even $5 or $10, no matter how small. This starts to set up a force field of energy that will attract more money. Then look for every opportunity to add to this account. Begin to study money so that you understand how to make it grow. Read books and magazines by experts on the subject of money. Never stop saving and learning and growing until you become financially independent. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please subscribe to my channel.
Anyway, so yeah, at the end he comes, forward as like a pitch man. But
So who was that? I'm just curious.
what is his name? He's out there. He's a pretty successful guy. I came across some of his information in terms of a small business class.
Many years ago, a man named Klassen wrote a book.
I'll sort it out for you. Yeah, but he's out there. He's a but he had a pretty lengthy 18-20 minute thing on YouTube about funding a small business and how to get it done. And he's a smart guy, certainly. And what he says, again, those aren't necessarily original thoughts. That's but he's pretty eloquent in the way he presents it. Yes.
Brian Tracy.
There you go.
Brian Tracy.
So are you a fan of his, or where do you know him
No, I
from?
just looked it up.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was going to try and do that, but it opened up the video again. But, yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing with anytime you see, you can make $1 million doing this, you can, flip houses, do this. Really, dude, if you could, you wouldn't be telling me about it. You'd be out there flipping houses because you can make $1 million a day flipping houses, and you can make however much, some modest amount, maybe telling other people about it. So, but this guy, at least what he's saying is I agree with just about all of it in terms of the starting small and things sort of take over. The whole force field of money, I'm not sure where that came from, but that's just his nature. But yeah, you see what I mean with the hands? He's kind of funny. Go ahead.
I kind of had a little fun during the video to figure out my aunts and my twin cousins. They actually do buy coffee from Starbucks every single day.
Yeah.
And a total for a year is $5,832.
Well, I mentioned this last week. I mean, I don't smoke, but when I see people who do and they're driving some theater car, I'm like, dude, you could be driving something nice. Because literally, what are cigarettes? Maybe $10 a pack. Go ahead.
Something that I was thinking about while we were watching that video was, it makes it sound so simple, saving $5 a day for, whatever, 40 years or something. But for a lot of people, that's just not realistic. Saving $5 a day. I'm not working full time right now, so
Exactly.
so what's, kind of a more realistic point in someone's life that they can start, creating a savings account like that?
Yeah, I mean, sort of the point that I chose, and again, you don't need to use your personal information on this, but it's a dynamic, and there's other people that are very concerned about, basically your generation, the fact that a lot of folks are in debt with college loans and are going to have to delay that savings program, are going to have to delay that home buying, and are going to, come screaming into retirement with less time. I would almost argue, though, as a percentage-wise, when he's talking about 1%, something like that, to get something started. And again, I would not go with a dollar figure. I would go with a percentage and learn to live within that. But the other thing he doesn't talk about is if somebody's got credit cards out there, that are unpaid, that are, the bank's getting 14, 15 or more % from you, you need to get that squared away before you start, investing. Don't fool yourself into thinking you've got a great investment program. I'm saving money, but yet you're paying a fortune in credit cards. You got to get the debt squared away first, the high interest debt. You have a question? No?
The 401k and tax deferred savings plan.
Yeah.
Do those grow?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I've got different plans, and it's just a characterization. Let's say you can have self-directed 401. This is kind of dicey, but I'm looking at it. I can invest in real estate. I've got 401k brokerage accounts where I can buy individual stocks. Again, broker individual stocks and long-term investment, maybe not the best way to go. But yeah, there's a multitude. When you go to a mutual fund company and you want to buy a certain mutual fund, if it's going to be in a 401k, you just tell them as such, and there it goes. What they do now, and again, we're getting towards later chapters or lessons, but they actually have what they call life stages accounts. It's all branding, marketing. But what they'll do is they'll say, people like you, very aggressive funds, because you can deal with the ups and downs of the stock market. And then when you get to be, where kids are starting to go to college and you're pulling that money out, something more stable, because there's a good chance you're going to be pulling from those funds. And then when you get to be retired, they switch you to more conservative funds. But yeah, pretty much any investment out there is available for 401ks. Yeah, and you can do whatever you want with it. But again, the caveats are you can't touch it until you're 59 and a half. If you do, and I did have to do this one time, I had a daughter in private school and ugly situation, and I'm not going to tell the yank her out of school, but it was an exceedingly expensive school. But anyway, I had to pull some money out of my retirement account, and yeah, the IRS clobbered me. But what are you going to do? I put it back. You can also borrow against 401ks, which is really cool. They charge me 5% interest, but the interest comes back to me. So I took out $50,000 because I couldn't move the money out. I'm like, the market's going to tank. I don't feel good with all this exposure, so I borrowed $50,000, which took it out of the market, and then I paid off some other stuff, some residential loans I had, not residential, but lot loans, Florida, property, swampland. Anyway, good investments, bad investments. Pay yourself first, though. We got that down. Come up with a plan that works for you. Don't carry balance on credit cards. Make automatic deductions. 401k, if there's a matching provision, oh my God, I mean, whatever. That is like the one exception where I would still do that. I'd do the math and figure out, do I pay off this other debt or do I do the matching? What a matching thing is when you've got an employer that says, you know, you put down 4% towards your 401k and we put down 4%. That's money on the table. If you are making, say, $100,000 and they're matching your 401k by 4%, you're actually making $104,000 if you take advantage of it. If you don't put your $4,000 in, then they don't match it, and you're leaving money on the table. So find out when you go to work for a company if they do have matching policy, and make sure if you do nothing else, you hit that match. And then homework. Okay, so we actually, I'm not as rushed as I thought we were. I mean, I wasn't rushing, but the homework, I know I create a lot of confusion. We got different editions of the books. So, you know, look in your book, find the problem that matches these numbers, and you'll be all set. Did you guys have any questions last week on the homework from Rule of 72? That's kind of a powerful thing, you know. It's good to think about, you know, Rule of 72. If I'm getting, you know, 3% interest, 3 into 72 is a lot. If I'm getting 10% interest, 10 into 72, 7 years. You know what I mean? So you can figure out, it just gives you that, if you're going to do math in public again, you want to keep it simple. Yes?
Yeah, I had a question on that homework. So I was just assuming everything was compounded annually. So, for instance, if your money doubles in 7.2 years.
That's compound interest.
Yeah. Well, or follow me for a second and tell me if I'm illogical or what. 7.2 years, that money's going to actually compound until the end of the 8th year. So you wouldn't actually get the money until the end of the 8th year, or at 7.2, whatever that is, 2 months and 14 days. Can you walk into the bank and say, give me my double, all my double? What day does that actually compound?
No, it's typically, because of computers and stuff, things are typically compounded daily. So your interest, but it's too much math for me to do. But like, let's go with a $100 example. You're getting 5% interest. That, because it's compounded per annum, but most of the time you're not looking for per annum. You're looking for compounded daily, which is the industry standard, if you will. At the end of that first year, you got $105,000 or $105. At the end of that second year, you start out that second year with 105. And so you end up with 100. What's that? Exactly. And then it just keeps going up and up and up. And that's the magic. I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, you know, the miracle of the modern era is compound interest, just because of the fantastic number. I didn't want to shortchange you. What was your question?
I actually had
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, so don't do those problems, because once in a while I get those solutions. People use simple interest. You know, they think, well, if I, you know, have $100 at 5%, at the end of 5 years, I'll have, no. It's compound interest. Compound interest is the key. And compounded interest, the shorter the period, the more voluminous, the more powerful. And it's the way the world is compounded daily. Should be. If somebody's not doing that, if somebody says simple interest or something like that, or so, if you know, if not that you're unscrupulous, but if you want to, you know, give somebody less return, if you're the lender in this case, yeah, say, okay, I'll pay you simple interest, and if they're not smart enough, they should realize that that's not a good deal for them. Yeah. Next. Yes.
Like clarification. So basically, they take 365. They take say 10% interest compounded annually. Right?
Yeah, they divide 10% by 365, and they do that each day.
Okay.
So you get a couple pennies each day, but then next day you get interest on $100 and 1.5 cents, and then next day it's $100 and 3 cents. And believe me, you know, you're like, yeah, what's the difference? Oh boy, you guys see Office Space? What if we just get that little, you know, that rounding off error? And that's truthful. I mean, people, those rounding off errors, the amount of money that's rounded off ends up being huge monies. We're not talking about the jar for the crippled children. We're talking about the other jar. Anyway, that was a great show. Almost killed me a couple of weeks ago. I've got this truck that's got this it didn't have a good radio in it, so I put a DVD kind of thing in it. I got it off eBay, but it'll actually play movies. That's dangerous. Driving down the road, it's so tempting. Office Space and Joe Dirt. I had to drive a long ways. Anyway, but I know those movies, inside out, so it's just sort of background music. Yes. Do you have a question back? No? Okay, so I think we're good. We will see you on Thursday.